Thanks for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast. If you like what you hear today, be sure to like it, share it, tell all your friends about it, give it a big fat review. You can also follow the show on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for regular updates about future guests. Today, we're brought to you by Metro Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram at Chicopee. Stop by their state-of-the-art dealership next to BJ's in Big Y on Memorial Drive, or go to metrojeep.com and make it Metro. And then drive home in your new Metro Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram today.
It's Baxie's Musical Podcast.
When I was in college, I was forced to accept a part-time job, washing dishes in a dormitory cafeteria. As glamorous as that sounds, I can assure you, I only accepted that position out of true economic necessity. Simply put, that job was gross. In time, I was able to leave that position and take a part-time job at a local radio station, thereby beginning my long and occasionally stable career as a professional broadcaster. Again, as glamorous as that sounds, there were times when that too was gross. But these are the sacrifices that one occasionally has to make in order to enjoy a college education and then put it to use. Of course, there were some people who were able to snag much cooler part-time jobs. I just wasn't one of those people. Nevertheless, in the entire world of academic excellence, I know of no other college student in America that has ever had a cooler part-time job than the one that was once held by Kira Roessler. You see, while she was busy getting a degree in applied engineering at UCLA during the mid-1980s, Kira Roessler was also the bass player for arguably one of the most importantly influential and notorious hardcore bands in America, Black Flag. From 1983 until she received her degree in 1986, Kira appeared on 5 Black Flag albums. She also toured with the band relentlessly in between semesters and exams. After leaving the band, she also began playing in a really cool side project called Dose with fellow bass player and future ex-husband Mike Watt of the Minutemen. She's also been involved in several other projects as well, including the release of her first solo album simply entitled Kira in 2021. But Kira Roessler's professional career doesn't just stop at music. She's also had a ridiculously successful career in sound engineering and film editing. In fact, in 2015, she won an Oscar for sound editing for the film Mad Max Fury Road. She also won a pair of Emmy Awards, one for her work in the 2008 miniseries John Adams. She also won an Emmy Award for her work in the series Game of Thrones. In other words, she's done pretty well. Yet despite all of it, music has never been too far away from Kira Roessler. In fact, Kira is about to release her second solo album on July 10th called Enigma. It is a beautifully unique and personal album that's both intimately melodic and moody at the same time. An album that was produced by her brother, Paul Roessler, former member of 45 Grave and the Screamers, whose own list of credits is enough to make your head spin as well. But when it comes to Kira, the intensity, the work ethic, and the emotional connection that she puts into her work, all of her work, is what has made Kira Roessler a legendary and widely respected figure in nearly everything she does. To talk about all of that stuff is my guest today, Oscar and 2-time Emmy Award winner Kira Roessler, formerly of Black Flag, on Baxie's Musical Podcast. First of all, I just want to say how thrilled I am to have you because I feel like I've been dancing around the Kira Roessler universe for a while now. I had Keith Morris on a few years ago. I had Bill Stevenson on. I had Mike Watt on back in April. And I keep saying, I got to get her on. I got to find a way. And lo and behold, it finally falls into my lap. So I really want to thank you for joining me today.
Great. Well, it sounds like you've been busy.
I have been. Well, I mean, I'm not Kira Roessler busy, but busy enough. But
Yeah.
but a real pleasure.
How do you know how busy I am? I might be sitting around eating bonbons.
I know you're not sitting around eating bonbons. I've read enough to know you're a little bit busier than that. I know the record's not coming out until July, but I've been listening to Enigma for the last couple of days, and I've really enjoyed the hell out of it. And I know you tend to write music from a very personal space, a very individual perspective, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But it's such a cool sounding record.
I'm so glad you think so.
Well, it's got everything I kind of expect. It's jazzy and melodic and minimalistic. It's emotional, and this there's all this great open space in this record, which almost seems to be, I don't know if you want to call it a trademark, but it seems to be some place where you seem to be very comfortable in a pocket.
Yeah. I mean, since I write very much from that personal perspective, that intimacy, is what I'm looking for. And for me, if I can bring you into my intimate little emotional space, then I've hit that nerve that I'm trying to with that song, right? So I come from each song comes from a real specific emotional space, and I'm trying to bring you, if not into my space, into your own space that makes you feel something,
Right.
and I feel like that space, that intimacy, allows for more emotional range.
That's a really good way of putting it. I know it's been a while since you had your last solo record. 2021 was the last one. And
Yeah,
I know on that record, it covered a span of time that basically reflected the lifespan of your dog who you
yeah,
lost. And anyone who's ever owned a dog knows the sort of immersive emotional extremes that relationship goes through, excruciating joy to excruciating grief in the course
right.
of a decade or so. I know it's not entirely true, but the new record feels like a slightly more upbeat form of heartbreak.
Well, think the new record has got so much is so different than the last one. The first record was totally recorded like a virtual band. We were never together. We sent files back and forth. It was
Right.
constructed to support this emotional thing. Whereas this time, after that record, we played live. We created a band. We have a band, So I recorded all of this stuff with my band. I went and every song I was with the drummer, working with the drummer to get those takes. I had Paul there for 7 of the songs, my brother, the piano player, right? So I had much more immediacy in the recording process. And because of that, I got to affect the writing of the parts, which of course I think in an intimate thing like this, the parts themselves, the writing is extremely important. And also, Paul and I had come up with this new methodology where I would write a second bass line, which is always in my nature, and he would then evolve his part directly from that. And it's created this, what we feel like is our own style, but he has been able to embrace that as his style when he plays with me. So I think the piano is creating a lot more in this record.
I wanted to ask you about that because one of the interesting parts about your career in music, apart from Black Flag, is how much you've experimented with two bass guitars at once.
Yeah,
I mean, certainly
yeah.
you did it with Mike and Dose and some of the other things you've done. The idea that Paul converts those bass parts to piano, I mean, and I agree, it's a really effective way of doing it. How did he convince you of that? I mean, were you precious
I
about any
convinced
of it?
him. Wait. No, no, no. I mean, when we started playing to play live, I was pushing him to these rhythmic anomalies that the bass two part had, right? These interplays they had with the first bass. So I was forcing him to play rhythmically in a
Hmm.
way that piano might not otherwise, right? So it became something where, out of an initial sort of pushing on my part, he then, now when he gets a second bass line part, he goes, okay, I'm going to figure out chords. I'm going to, like, he's used to the idea that he's going to be this interplay with me, right?
Right.
Where that was just not his style before, and isn't a normal piano style. So he became my second bass player. If I didn't have him, I'd have to have like a bass or a cello or a trombone or
Yeah.
something, right?
What is it about the interplay of two bass guitars that appeals to you? Is it just the conversation of it all, or is it a feel? I mean, what is it about it that grabs you so strongly?
Well, it's funny, like this goes all the way back to when my nephews, who are now, grown up 30 somethings, were babies, and I was writing to bass music with bedtime stories to give to them because I was going to be out of town for a year and I didn't want them to forget me, and because my one of my nephews really struggled falling asleep. So I had this idea that if I had bedtime stories that he could listen to and had soothing bass lines, that he would sleep better and feel my presence. I'm not sure whether I achieved any of that with that, but for me, it became the way that I expressed myself, and I found it to be extremely rewarding to figure out how to create this interplay. And Dose was basically born somewhat out of these ideas, and Dose went on for 30 years. So I had a lot of time where I was writing, trying to make things work for Mike, or I was writing a part two, something Mike was doing, right? So this became a complete stylistic, foreground activity for me for a very long time. So when it came to doing my own music, well, I mean, I was already doing this, right? I was
Right.
already just in my room recording these things, and my tendency was to do this sort of back and forth. And even if it wasn't for Dose, that was the what made sense to me about how to tell the story.
I'm trying to imagine because I had kids; they're all adults now, but at the time they were young, trying to lullaby them to sleep with songs like I don't know, "Rise Above" or "My War" or just
No,
like not,
no, 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 no. I would do like
"TV Party" maybe.
no, Cat in the Hat. Like I would read bedtime stories, and then the music would be soothing and warm and slow and melodic. And no, I was each year as they got older, I got more sophisticated. Like I was trying to match their life. I ended on Edgar Allan Poe because they were teenagers and they were dark, and I don't think they listened to it at all. But for me, I was trying to reach something, and connect in some way. And this way of connecting is obviously something that I, just really fallen into and adored.
You had mentioned the appeal of writing songs that may connect to people on any number of levels. I mean, obviously, about songs about your dog, but on the new record, especially as I'm listening to the first single, "How Could You?" I couldn't help but feel that, yeah, God damn it, I've been in that relationship.
Yes.
I've been on
Well,
the receiving end of that.
right. Well, this is my style, right? Like something happens, and then when it's over and I'm reflecting on it, I am dramatizing it in a way that I hope you will feel, right? I'm dramatizing it to the point where it's like, yes, you will have your experience come into this because there is this sort of base reaction, right? When you get hurt by someone in an argument or by in a relationship, you get hurt. Well, how could you do this to me is the obvious reaction, right? So I dramatize that in a way to try to, and then I say, even though I know I was wrong, like of course that happens too, right? Is like you're like after the fact, you're like, gee, I did kind of overreact or something. So all of that I try to dramatize,
Well, I
right?
mean, and it's a really sophisticated idea. I mean, there are lots of songs that go one way or another, but not combining both, which is really what life is all about. It's kind of the opposites and hypocrisies that we we play in our minds sometimes. I thought it was a really cool thing. But like I said, I've been in that situation. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if she's writing about me, if she's talked to my ex-wife. I don't know what you've done. It's
Well, there are basic human experiences, right? Like when I was the second single, which is coming out very shortly, is that there was this. I was having this conversation with work people, and I was going to have shoulder surgery, and I said, "Well, don't worry, you will feel my pain." And I love that phrase, right? So I went with it, and again, in that two-sided way, well, you will feel my pain, innocence notwithstanding. you know, like whether or not you deserve it, right? This is not an issue. This is just about me. And why shouldn't you, if you're near me, experience what I'm experiencing, right? So I do like, even in normal relationships, this idea that we affect other people, right? And
yeah.
and and whether or not they know what's going on in our heads, there's all this, emotional roller coaster we're on when we are around people, which is, a difficult situation just in itself.
One of the songs that I really really liked, I want to kind of get your perspective on what it's about. Is I really like the song Jim. I thought that was a really beautifully written song. I'm
Thank
not
you
sure.
so much.
I'm not really sure what you're trying to how you're trying to get Jim's attention here, but I thought it was really a really well done song.
Jim was one of my dogs.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay, now I get it.
So actually, Jim would have these horrible coughing fits, and I would panic, right? Like, Jim, okay, Jim, So it's actually kind of around that this started, like this helpless feeling I had when he was suffering, But again, I thought it was a universal feeling of, there's something happening, and I can't affected. I can't do anything about it. I'm helpless. I'm hopeless. I'm so worried about you. I care so much. And this again is a feeling we can all
Yeah.
imagine.
I love the fact that you did a jazzed up version of Black Flag's Drinking and Driving. I think the 20-year-old me probably would have preferred the original, but now that I got a few miles on me, I think I kind of prefer the new version now. So I don't know if that makes me a poser or what it does, but damn it, I'll die on that hill. I really love the arrangement of it.
Punk rock is about resistance and about nonconformity. It is not about a sound of the music. We get to resist what is, and punk rock is awfully hip, right? So I'm not trying to be like that, but I always felt like the Black Flag songs where Henry wrote the lyrics were kind of the best because he could really emote his feelings. So I had to pick, if I was going to do a cover song, a song where Henry had written the lyrics and Henry was coming from his space, and that I could relate to.
Yeah.
As a recovering alcoholic, if you will.
Right. I just thought it was really cool the way you did it. And again, maybe it's because of my own maturity. I still feel that punk rock draw to it, but it's like, nope, this is now for people my age now.
Grown up.
Yeah, we're all grown up now. I still don't feel like a complete outsider anymore. I still don't conform to everything, but no, this is the one I want to hear. I just thought it was great.
Wonder what Greg would think.
Yeah, well, right. Well, I'm sure maybe he'll contact you, let him know what you think.
We'll see.
Yeah. I've heard you talk a lot about your time in Black Flag. I've done, a pretty decent amount of research trying to figure out, how, things went. And one of the things that really surprises me in interviews that you've been in is how often you're asked about the alleged rarity of women in punk and in hardcore. And it's simply not true. I mean, it's like, the Runaways, the Bags, the Cramps, X. I mean, Belinda Carlisle was in the Germs, for crying out loud. It's like, to me, women have always,
and their bass player was a girl too.
Exactly.
Lorna Doone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, women have always been a part of it, but yet it always seems like for whatever reason, their participation in it gets overlooked and downplayed. And I'm not really sure why that is. And I'm interested to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Well, one of the things we've done, or the media, whoever has done in looking back at punk rock is created this other genre called hardcore. We never had that at the time, but like after the fact, there's this hardcore thing, and hardcore means something different than punk rock, and it means these kind of bands, and these bands, where you slammed and we didn't pogo anymore, we slammed, right, or whatever. Like there's this whole thing, right? So I think that people were like, well, and hardcore was really, really intense, and it was really male, I think that this is a complete fallacy, but it is something that, people have asked me about. And so my response is always, well, I've never been a guy in a punk rock band, so I can't really speak to it in terms of what's so special about it. I wasn't ever thinking, well, here I am, a girl, there's a vulnerability as a small human being in a dangerous situation, which anyone could relate to, right? So there were situations which were dangerous to me, but they would have been dangerous to a small male in the same situation, probably.
Do you think the uniqueness of your situation in Black Flag was because in part because of its reputation. I mean, for the longest time, Black Flag had were problems with with violence and problems with police breaking up shows and stuff like that. And was it mostly like reputation that followed them
Well,
around?
it's funny because Black Flag's reputation, I always felt like with the police and stuff came from the fact that the bars were spray painted all over the city, and that made them sort of intimidated by it, I mean, punk rock was little and underground, the fact that police were so, aware of it here in Los Angeles anyway was kind of surprising to me because who cared about these few hundred people in a city of all, you know what I mean? Like, why is this so important? But it was. I mean, we had many shows, and not just Black Flag shows. We had Elks Lodge Riot with a bunch of bands that weren't Black Flag, where the police came in drunk, we believe, because it was St. Patrick's Day, and Riot copped our asses out of the show,
Yeah.
So I think that there was an overemphasis on from the punk rock perspective for the police and for society, which was kind of what we were doing. We were anti-society, right? So we were trying to be the underground. We were trying to resist, and we looked different. Now it's so mainstream, right, to have purple hair or whatever, but you can imagine in 1985 when I walked into Denny's in Mississippi with purple hair, it was not,
Right.
the norm at all. So I always think that is all we left, a visual thing. Is that our big legacy, punk rock, is that people can wear funny colored hair and dress a little more like they want to dress? I don't know. If that's it, then so be it. I still think it's time to revolt. Still think I just wrote a protest song about this, that this is why we're punk rockers, and that the youth today should be rebelling in kind, however that looks. But so yeah, I think that may be why it seemed weird to have a girl. I mean, that may be why Greg wanted me.
Right.
It wasn't like we were close friends or anything, so it wasn't. He may have been doing it somewhat again to shock and do the unlikely thing. He is someone who could continue to write music that as like, okay, I'm going to write slow songs now. Like he was somebody who didn't want to be held down to some expected way of playing or being. So yeah, it could have been that, but I can't really help because I can't ever say what it would have been like
Right.
if I wasn't a girl.
Right. You were in the band at a pretty unusual time in your life, because at the same time you're in the band, you're also going to college at the same time. I mean, I washed dishes in a dormitory cafeteria. It was the shittiest damn job I ever had. But I like the sound of your part-time college job a whole lot better. I mean, sleeping on couches across America sounds a whole lot better than trying to get sandwiches out of a drinking glass or a coffee mug. But
Dude, being poured out of the van at UCLA and having the sorority girls look in shock and horror wasn't that cool. It always took me a week or two to have the hiss in my ears stop, and the ringing stop, so that I could do applied math, which for some reason I was trying to get a degree in computers because I believed that as a backup job, computers were probably a good thing to have.
how did you manage that, though? I mean, because it's not like the band didn't take a good deal of time to participate in. I mean,
No, but they agreed to work around my schedule a little bit. So we did some horrible things like winter tours as a result. But they worked around so that I was able to do quarters in between tours, and then it would always inevitably be that I'd be doing midterms while we had a 48-hour lockout trying to record an album, and I would be studying when I dropped in exhaustion from playing, trying to study for my Monday morning test. I mean, it was brutal, honestly, because I was studying pretty difficult stuff, and I was not an A student, but I was committed to not drop out, and I was committed to to Black Flag to the best of my ability. So I did it.
Walking off with an applied engineering degree is a lot more complicated than the one that the communications degree I got, and I wasn't in a band at the time. So, I mean, my hat goes off to you because there's no way in hell I could have
Well, I had
managed all
been
of that.
all through high school. I was leaving school and going to practice too. It was sort of for me. There's a balancing act between my intellectual and my emotional. Still today, I work a job which I find more intellectual, and I do my music to satisfy my emotional. So there's kind of always been that balancing act in my life.
When you did get out of school and you had left the band by that point, did you find it to be like a hard transition to like walk away from one thing to go to another thing? I mean, I would imagine that being the bass player for Black Flag is a little bit different than working in a cubicle, or
Right.
or maybe it's
I
not.
mean, I gotta tell you, I really thought my phone would ring and somebody might want me to be in their band, but that did not happen for me. I really honestly thought, so at some point some cool band will want me. No, that didn't happen. So I was back to just working and doing what I do, which is starting to record. And I had met Mike Watt by that time, and the first year I worked at Yale University, we were sending 4-track cassettes back and forth working on our first record. So it just kept going however, we could do it. So it was happening.
So how did the film work start for you? I know you started working in like small independent films, but how did that begin?
Well, I was working in computers for 11 years as a programmer and analyst in a corporate world. And I met a guy who was a USC film student who was working on sound for some USC student films. And he had my brother doing some composing work on it, and they wanted me to play bass. So I met this guy, and I was like, wow, it's like computers and like sound, like this is a kind of a good fit for me. And so I basically just begged him to let me come work for his tiny little company. I told him I would answer phones and just be a grunt runner for $8 an hour, and left my 70 grand a year job to to do that, to start over. And I knew I was starting over, but the corporate world was really hard for me. I couldn't figure out how to dress right. I couldn't figure out how to act right. I felt like a fish out of water the whole time. And the movie business is a little more of a creative industry, so it's a little less focused on things like how you dress.
So what would you say would be like that first big break in film?
Well, what happened was I worked on there was a picture editor who had won an Academy Award for a sound and had transitioned to picture. And she was working on a small film that small company worked on. And I worked on dialogue editing, worked really hard on this movie. And she recommended me to a guy who did real movies, who did more big time movies. And he hired me for a movie called Insomnia, which with Al Pacino in it and Robin Williams. And that was really my first break, is that her recommending me to this guy. And I look up this guy, and he was the ADR dialogue supervisor for ET. So he was like the guy,
Right.
he was like experienced. He was going to be able to teach me how to do this at this new level, so just a fluke thing like happens. It's relationships and meeting people and happening to be in the right place and then busting your ass, to make sure that they think you're incredible, which is the hardest part, is when those opportunities come, you have to completely kill yourself to show them that you're you come earlier than they do, you leave later than they do, and you take every suggestion that they give you, and you please your boss. I don't have any problem with being a worker amongst workers.
But it's an important point though that when opportunities present themselves, to be able to take advantage of them and make and maximize them. I was going through your IMDb credits just to see what else you had worked on, and as I'm going through it, I mean I couldn't help but feel like music has really gotten in your way. It's like,
Oh, that's gotten in my way of my music. Yes, I actually wrote a song about having to walk past my bass guitar and go to work. You know, one of the best things that happened to me was COVID, because more of us are working from home now, and I'm getting a chance to manage my hours. So, you know, both, you could say both get in the way of the other, but also there's something, like I said, about me being stimulated both by my intellectual side. You know, dialogue editing is a very technical gig. You're trying to solve problems that are like really small and maybe not even noticed by a lot of people, and you're trying to uh, it's like a puzzle. You're trying to fix problems, and then being out of that, I get to, you know, express all those feelings that I have even at work. You know, I wrote a song about what it's like to be at work when I'm dying not to be there, right? So you just take all of it and create, you know, dramatize it into, this is my life. I have a swimming song on the record because I like to swim.
Yeah. You know, as I'm reading more about what dialogue editing is all about, it sounds like you talk about like, you know, solving problems but it also sounds like almost overwhelming kind of work, depending on what film you're working for, what director you're working for. For people that may not know what it is exactly you do, how would you describe in practical terms so people could understand a little bit more what it's all about?
Sure. Well, everybody thinks, right, they just record it on the set and then you use it, right? What's dialogue editing, right? But you have to remember the step that happens next, which is it goes into picture editing, and picture editors take what, let's say 25, 30, 40 different takes in one scene, chop it all together and turn it into the scene. Well, now I get it. It sounds like right. It sounds like 40 lines that are from 40 different places, which they are. And I have to turn this into a seamless scene that sounds like it was all recorded in one take, which it wasn't. And then every time there's a problem, which there are many, I have to try to solve it, whether it's this take is noisy or this guy put a big clunk down in the middle of an important line or whatever. And if I can't fix it, I have to try to record it ADR in the studio with the actor. Also, constantly they're making decisions to change lines, replace lines, add lines, right? So we go into the studio to record those. So I'm in the studio, ADR studio, with the director and the actors making that happen. Also, everybody in the background doesn't talk when they're on film.
Right.
So that all has to be replaced with people in the studio as well. So it's a lot, you know, it's a big job and it's a technical job, and it obviously doesn't get mixed out. So it's a primary thing that's going to be in the final mix in that center speaker in the theater. So when we go into the mix, I have to have everything organized really well so that the mixer can then do what he's got to do. And I sit there waiting for them to say, change that. And then I have to hurry up and change it because mixing costs like a whole lot of money. And you better not be the one to hold it up. So I become I'm a cog in a wheel, but it's an important cog.
I would imagine the improvements in technology have made probably a big difference in getting that work done. I don't know if it's a matter of speed or the accuracy in which you can change and fix something. Has it made a big difference, or does the film industry still look at it as the old fashioned way is still the best way of doing it?
Well, yes and no. Yes, the tools are amazing and we can do so much more. And therefore, they give us less time and less help. And I have to do way more by myself faster. Right. So the budgets just squeeze constantly. So
Right.
instead of having, a 20-man team, we have a 4-man team. And I'm the only person working on the dialogue, and we have the same amount of time to get it to the mix, right? So all they've done is said, oh, you have these tools, now you can do it way faster. And somewhat that's true, but it's that old accuracy, speed, the quality will suffer if I rush, and I have to make these value judgments on what I can let ride, what won't be an issue in the mix, and what has to be fixed, right? So that's where the technical skill comes in.
You've
years of doing it.
You've won an Oscar for or a part of the team that did Mad Max Fury Road, well as a couple of
Right,
Emmy awards for the John Adams miniseries and Game of Thrones. Do you ever call up
right.
the guys from the old band and say, "So, what have you guys been up to? Because I've been busy dusting off my major awards." Ever get the sense you want to call Greg again and say, "Hey, you're not going to believe what I just did. I just polished up my Emmy
No,
today."
I got a call, I got an email from Henry after this. It went out that Kira had won an Academy Award, which I do not have the hardware, right? The supervisors get that. So I didn't have the hardware. So I'd explained to him I was just part of a team and it had been a little bit exaggerated. So he was nice enough, though, to congratulate me. No, there isn't a lot of that kind of communication. But I got to say, the truth is, Henry's been doing all sorts of amazing things. Greg is out there touring with some kids, which, you can look at it any way you want to, but I bet those kids have the kind of rage that we had. So I bet those kids are bringing a new energy and a new rage, and I bet it's the best version of Black Flag since back then. Personally, like I'm guessing it is. I don't want to go rehash that, but I bet it's good, and I don't begrudge people who want to make a little money off something where we were all starving and scraping the bottom of the barrel and being treated like the scum on people's shoes and be treated like rock stars. I get it. I understand why people want to do that, right? So people are out there doing stuff. Bill's doing incredible stuff. Like, I don't have to, we're not in competition, and they're all pretty productive guys, because the way we did Black Flag, the energy we put into that, they are now putting into other stuff, and I am now putting into other stuff.
That's actually a really good point. I mean, when you think about what the four of you have done since 1986, 87, I mean, you've all been prolific
Yes.
in your own way. I mean,
Yeah.
I look at Bill. Bill never stops working. Henry,
That's
is
right.
not making music
Right.
per se, but he's constantly busy. And Greg keeps,
Right.
the flame going for Black Flag. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
extraordinary that you could find four people that have not fallen off the face of the earth and still remain incredibly valid today.
Well, like I said, we were all very A type personalities in that way, in terms of being super motivated. That's why we clicked for a while. That's why for a while, that marriage of four worked, because we all had that willingness to go on tour in the winter and have it be 65 below wind chill factor in Vancouver and have all our shit frozen. We were willing to fucking do that. There was a moment when we looked at each other like, are we gonna drive 600 miles to Winnipeg, and it's gonna be like there's nothing open, there's nothing between there, are we gonna make it safely? Like it was that. So we're the kind of people who say, yeah, but we got a gig,
I mean,
we got to get there.
Bill alone needs a coffee break every 15 minutes anyway. You can't just stop him. You just can't be in a desert
Well,
somewhere.
we didn't stop. There was nothing, right? But there was this attitude that we have a gig. We got to
Yeah.
get there. And the opening band was like, God, are we gonna make it? They were, but it's like, we're going. Are you coming with us? Like, we were gonna go. And all of us had that attitude. And sure, they resented the hell out of me that we were there in winter because of my school schedule. That didn't help the long-term, relationship much, but that's the kind of people we were, and I'm not surprised at all that they've been prolific.
How much would you say your work as a musician has intersected with your work in film? I mean, I've heard you talk about that dialogue editing may not be the most creative thing you can do, but it does sound like the work ethic that you had back in your early 20s is the same kind of work ethic that you have today. Would that be the only intersection, or are there others that might be considered?
I would say that's one. I mean, I use the same tool. Pro Tools is involved in both, so that's been cool. I use the same tool to record my music and edit my songs as I do to edit my dialogue. So there's some mechanical and technical things that I can use. I can use across these things. Um, but yeah, it's a very different kind of, almost part of my brain
Mm.
involved, and I have to I kind of have to shut down that emotional thing, right? I can't throw a chair across the room in a professional environment, right? So I can't have those strong emotions. So it's almost like I have to find ways of turning that punk rock Kira off. I talked to my therapist about punk rock Kira versus regular Kira. You know, this is punk rock Kira, by the way. Um, but yeah, it's almost like it's a different part of.
You know, I said earlier that I had spoken to Mike Watt back in April, and I mean,
Yeah,
well, honestly,
I know
he
the
did most of
guy.
the talking. Yeah, I know you know him. I know you know him very very well.
Yeah,
Considering how busy you are, you're both in a way kind of workaholics. Certainly, he is, and obviously
yes,
you are as well.
yes,
Regardless of
yes.
how that of your relationship, either married or unmarried or whatever it may be, I'm surprised the two of you were able to record as much as you did as Dose, considering the wide breadth of that relationship and how much you guys do apart from all that. It's really pretty remarkable that so much was done as Dose.
I'm funny you say that because for 30 years it doesn't feel like a lot. But look, for a long time, Dose was my really my only band, and because of that, my relationship with him, I was the person sort of pushing that Dose be something. I was kind of afraid that that was going to be it for me, and that because I'm going to keep writing songs and recording them, but it was my brother who convinced me to put out my first solo record. Like I didn't know I would do anything after Dose. So for a long time, I was kind of pushing that and trying to find ways to do that. And I've stopped trying to do that. And then you've noticed that we haven't done anything for a while. We
Right.
didn't break up. We just both been doing our own thing, and that's exactly what you're saying is that the stuff just took over, and I stopped fighting that fight,
Yeah.
and he stopped fighting that fight, uh, which means that there's nothing that says there wouldn't be another Dose record. There's no animosity. There's no obstacle other than time and space.
So I have to ask, how did your brother convince you to finally start releasing your own music? Because I mean, as someone who's been making music, but for whatever reason keeping it in the shadows to yourself, what was it that finally convinced you from him that it's
Well,
time to maybe release some of this stuff?
Paul's career as a producer and then in Kitten Robot Studios, and then their creation of a label called Kitten Robot Records, uh, was definitely a factor. He was able to sort of say, I could facilitate without you having, to do much. Like I wasn't going to have to go out and find a label, for example. He was saying, meet with the label people, and of course I met with the label people and they were super excited about it, right? um, and I said to them, look, if we won't sell records, Dose doesn't sell any records. Like, don't expect that this weird music is gonna, you know, do well. It just doesn't. I don't know why. Is I have a name, but don't expect that to. I'm infamous, but don't expect. I tried to tell them, but I don't think they really believed me. I think they thought, people might be interested, and we discussed the cover, and they rejected my first cover, and then we were off. Him getting me to have that meeting basically resulted in me saying, okay, I can put together a record. I have a vision. I had a vision of the cover, and it evolved into something that we could agree on. And so it was, him facilitating it in that way and their enthusiasm. I have a tendency when people put an opportunity in front of me to just jump in, and good or bad, and really jump in with both feet. It's an opportunity that's dropped in my lap. Don't say no,
Yeah.
so it came to my lap. The second one didn't evolve in the same way. There were different circumstances. I had a different friend pushing me to put the second record out and telling me to call this label or that label or contacting them himself. And he told me to call Org Music. And I was like, Org Music put out a Dose record. I was like, yeah, it's like I'm already on that label. I could call him, because I'm not, cold calls aren't really my thing. But I called and there was interest, and that interest resulted in me putting together Enigma. So it really just he threw the opportunity in my face, and I took it.
Well, I'm glad you did. It's a great record. I've really enjoyed it, and it's coming out on July 10th. Again, it's called Enigma. Kira, this has been a blast. It's been great to get a chance to speak with you.
Me too. Thank you so much, Mike, for your interest and for your questions and for your listening and expressing your thoughts about the record.
Well,
I'm very excited about Enigma, and keep an eye open for the second single.
Great. Will do. Kira, thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Okay. Take care.
Take care now. Bye-bye. The name of Kira Roessler's new album is called Enigma. It's due out on July 10th and produced by her brother, Paul. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can email me at bax@rock102.com. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks to Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram at Chicopee for their support, but most of all, thanks to you for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast.